What's up, what's up, what's up? This is Alisha B here on the Metro Show, KGNU, Boulder, Denver, 88.5 FM, 1390 AM, and KGNU all over the world. My name is Alisha B. I am the femme fatale on the radio dial, and you are listening to the Metro Show as it happens with me. How y'all doing? I hope to find you well. I have this lovely and fantastic interview from international Syrian American poet Amal Kissir. She's a friend of mine, and she sat down with me, and we're going to get into that right after these friendly reminders from KGNU.
10 for 10 series of community events commemorating 10 years in Denver at 1390 AM with our holiday open house and record sales Sunday, December 15th from 12 to 4 p.m. at our Denver home, 700 Calumet Street. This is a chance to meet KGNU DJs, enjoy holiday treats, and sneak a peek behind the scenes of your favorite radio station while picking up vinyl treasures for the music lovers on your list. Our house at 700 Calumet will be open to the public Sunday, December 15th, 12 to 4 p.m. Drop in for a tour and much more.
How you doing, Amal?
I'm doing real good, Alicia. How you doing
Oh,
this
you
evening?
know, just hipping and hopping.
Hell yeah.
Like I don't stop from the bottom to the top.
Can't stop.
I read about you in a Westward a couple weeks ago, huh?
Yeah.
Man.
Cover, man.
Right. I walked by and I was like, oh, wait, that's Amal.
What?
I know her.
And the best part of that was, it was the first time that they used that particular flag on a media outlet. CNN, Fox News, all of that.
What?
Don't use that particular flag. That's the flag that represents the revolution, the opposition, the people who do not recognize the regime killing their people. The other flag is what they use.
Really?
Yeah, it's what the United Nations hangs on their walls. And so this was, if anyone knew what was going on, if anyone knew what that symbolized, that was, it was a big deal in the media.
So, okay. Not only is Amal an emissary for her people, right? She is an activist. She is a firm believer in liberty and justice for all.
Everyone.
Regardless of how much you paid to get in.
Exactly.
There you go. You and you, liberty and justice. So first, let's talk about Syria a little bit.
Well, it's referred to a lot of times as a civil war, but you've got the regime versus the people. That's where it started. It became a little more involved with various groups fighting each other, but it began with a groups of 6 or 7 boys who went up to a wall and wrote on it, Jain Dorakia Doctor, which means your turn's coming, doctor. And they were referring to the president, the Western educated president of the regime. And this graffiti, this element of hip-hop that had entered into the lives of these people, this fight for freedom, triggered something that hit fire across the country. And so all these kids, they were kidnapped and they were tortured by the regime as a statement, as, keep your mouth shut,
We will
kids.
not be writing on the walls today, children.
Exactly. And because writing on the walls means you're saying something. It means you're thinking. It means you're opposing. It means you're getting ready to fight something that is bigger than you, that you're supposed to be scared of. And these kids weren't afraid, and...
Oh, yeah, that's a problem to authority.
Oh, yeah.
What do you mean you're not afraid?
And that's what happened. This is what the revolution is. It's people not being afraid anymore. Because back in 1982, the president's father, Hafiz al-Assad, had carried out a massacre on a city, and between 20 and 40,000 people were killed. That number is so big in between, but so many were detained, so many have been detained, missing, unaccounted for, and thousands and thousands of people, and that shut people up. The Syrian people were quiet. They didn't want to deal with that again. No one wants their husbands to die. No one wants their sons and their daughters and their brothers and sisters, no matter how, passionate you are about the fight. And so for 30 years they were quiet, and then March 15th, 2011 hits, and suddenly you've got these people in the streets ready to get their voices out and speak. The protests then turned into funerals, and then a combination of demonstration, funeral, getting shot at by army tanks, getting shot at by soldiers, people getting even angrier, and more people getting together, and bam, you got a revolution. And it hit every single city in a matter of months. And the regime, the entire time on the television set, was just telling everyone it's nothing, nothing's going on. They weren't even mentioning that things were happening, that kids were dying, that, you know, and you've got the poster child of the revolution is Hamza Khatib. Any Syrian, anyone who knows what's going on in Syria knows Hamza Khatib. And this kid was 12 years old, just a little boy, you know what, 5th grade, 6th grade or something, and he was walking home from school on a Friday. And Friday is when they usually have their protests. And he was kidnapped by the regime. And no one knew where Hamza was for a month. A whole month his parents had no clue what happened to him until, this gets a little gruesome, he shows up on their doorstep in a bag. This kid has bruises all over his body. He's got cigarette holes. He's got his penis was mutilated. I mean, they ruined this child's body and they tortured him. And they have the video up on YouTube of the autopsy of this child, this 12-year-old child whose parents received him on the doorstep like that. And at this point, people who did not want to be involved in this fight were taken aback at the audacity of a regime to do that to a child and then send it back
give
as
it
a threat.
back to their parents.
Exactly.
Just in case anybody had any ideas.
Right. And so thinking that would silence them, suddenly you had the college students that were all like, okay, this is wrong and we're not going to sit here and let them do this to our kids. And so collectively they came together. Facebook was one of the biggest elements of this. Without those social media websites, this revolution could not have been as successful as it is now. And I mean, you got musicians, you've got, I mean, it's hip hop. Ultimately, when you want to ask people,
I was listening to on my SoundCloud. I subscribe to WEBZ, right, and they're based out of Chicago, and they have a lot of very interesting independent, which oddly enough happens to have a lot of Middle Eastern correspondence, and they were talking about what freedom songs sound like versus what it's like corporate hip hop versus underground hip hop, the people who feel it and the people who are paid to do it, right?
Yeah.
And they were talking about how, like, you know, the government's music sounds like, I hate to really say stereotypical things that you would think of hearing while you're on that side of the planet. Right. That's what their pop, quote unquote, music is like. But when you're talking to like people who are, even the young people who feel like it's not necessarily activist, but people who feel like it's wrong, it's all hip hop. And like it sounds so cool. I was like, oh, they rap in Arabic. What the hell? Wow.
It's so fresh.
Wow, it's so fresh. Yeah. It is so fresh. So it's pretty awesome to see that hip hop is making a ground floor contribution and an impact in the ways that that's more positive. That's like taking your power and using it the way the rap ancestors did. It's like hearing a new take on an old Negro spiritual.
Word. Yeah, and I mean that's what they did. They took music from the past and they added a couple beats to it, added a bit of the tabla, the drums and things like that, and they started chanting that, incorporating that into the way they dance, into the way that they feel things. And I mean they liberated themselves through the beats. And you got Ibrahim Qashush is another symbol of the revolution. This guy wrote the lyrics that every Syrian is dancing to against the regime. And the regime hates this music. And that's when they fire. And this guy got kidnapped. He got his throat ripped out. And he was thrown on the side of the highway. The man who wrote the lyrics that still live today. Yeah, he's dead. Yeah, they ripped his throat out. But what did that stop? You know, that people took that as an example to further that lyricism, to further that excitement and that music, and to bring it to the stages and to hit the streets. And there they are, you know, there they are speaking, yelling, rioting, and they're not afraid of bullets anymore. Because with hip-hop, with that element of musical liberation, you're not afraid. You can't be anymore. You teach your kids to sing, and you teach them that the gun won't silence them. And Yeah, it's powerful stuff.
Right. I'm all like, wow. Right. That's awesome. Fearless seems to be one of your common themes. I was reading the Westward article, and your mom described you as fearless. That's awesome. Parental compliments just tickle me the most, because those people are the people who knew you from the beginning. They're like, oh man. I also read about fearlessness in your poem about your grandma's farm. Can you perform that one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Will you please?
My grandmother always had dinner on the table. Even when the tyrant put checkpoints outside her door, her defiance made mealtimes a battle her family would always win. As long as she could keep chopping, she would get that tabbouleh to the table fresh. Families sit together to eat. They don't await the funeral prayer, so she would send my cousin down the stairs to get her parsley, and they ate like kings amidst a war zone. Recipe the tyrant has never tasted. My grandma knows Syria better than anyone. It is the arthritis living in her knees. She had a farm whose dust she knew by name. She knew the day the peaches would be ripe or how sour a lemon would be based on the rain. My grandma, she spoke the language of the land that fed her. She housed families on her farm. They would help till the soil. Their hands were colored by dirt, her hands bruised from hollowing out zucchini. They built Syria with a prayer, with a meal, blistered hands, and enough food to feed the neighbors. The falah, the farmer, is the one who knows his country best. It was him to take Syria's first bullets, and it was him to stay behind. He knows what Syria needs when she is thirsty, knows what she will do to his body when he is buried. A farmer knows what his grave will smell like. And when the war started, even the rivers ran away. For the hands of a militant aren't like the hands of a farmer. Bullet and earth can't speak to each other. Blood doesn't make crops grow, and so Syria stopped growing. Spent all her time counting dead bodies. It's hard to trust the footsteps when everyone is running, when the bombs disguise themselves as clouds, when militants talk dirty about a country whose parsley they have never even tasted. But only a farmer could convince this soil to grow again. He is water in time, a drought history. Dialect is the language the dirt prays in. He knows what Syria needs, knows what it is doing to the bodies of his brothers that are buried. The farmer will cook for these starving people using my grandmother's recipes. They cut down every single tree in her farm. They rip the pomegranate bushes from the earth, and the lemons do not grow anymore. And the Syrian people wonder, does the tyrant not remember who fed him? My grandmother has sworn to write down every single recipe when this war is over. She knows what Syria needs. They all know what Syria will need. They will rebuild this country with a prayer, with a meal, blistered hands, and enough food to feed the neighbors. And the tyrant, the dirt is waiting for him. He will learn his grave and feel the weight of the entire country on his chest. And when the soil asks him, "Did you not spill blood in my name? Then why do you fear me so? Let these maggots give your body back to me, President." And Bashar al-Assad, the president of Syria, will not know how to respond. He doesn't speak the language of his country. He will struggle against the dirt that fed him.
Yeah. Powerful.
Grandma, that's all her, man.
Oh, Grandma. Talk to me about Brave New Voices.
Brave New Voices that's where I was born. I was on a team, Denver's Minor Disturbance Youth Poetry, and it's a slam team. They got a grand slam, and they get kids from all across Denver to compete, and they pick the top 6, And I happened to make, one of those places, and we trained for the next 3 months, basically. Wrote poems together, cried together, felt together, struggled together, so that we could prepare ourselves for a stage bigger than what we have ever experienced. And it was the first time that Denver had won internationally first place, and we kicked it. We gave stories that were not heard before. We made final stage, and the point that affected me the most, I was with Ashlyn Damers, and she helped me write this poem on Syria. And we got lucky because it was the last poem of the last round. And we were in a meditative state before we went up. We sat there and we looked at each other, and we're just like, we are doing this for them. We are not here tonight. We have nothing to do with this poetry, with this performance. This is 100% those who cannot speak. And that's what the poem was. It was on behalf of those people, and I had never performed a poem like that in my life. The last thing that I thought of before I spoke my first words was my grandmother and her farm. That was the last thing I thought of, and we got up there, and I think we got a perfect score or something like that. But, we weren't even focused on that. We felt it, and the audience felt it, and everyone had their hands, pointed at us. It was like they were begging to feel more of what we had to offer them. And Ashlyn wasn't on stage. I was the only one on stage. She was the voice behind the curtain. And so, that for her to give her face up for the cause, that is profound, and yeah, the poem moved thousands of people. On YouTube, you've got a version of it in Arabic with the little subtitles at the bottom, and a version in English, and, people felt it. People who didn't understand that war took that poem and suddenly were able to conceive the idea of struggle. And it was a little revolution on its own. Writing it for me and Ashlyn, and then performing it, and then giving it to people who did not know before. That must have been what it would be like to be on one of those protests in Syria, in Tiananmen Square, for instance. When people come together and they're feeling what's happening, and the impact of a bullet is the equivalent to those people feeling us. But it was in such a way that we were making peace with the fight,
Yeah. Tell me about what the poet means to the stage and what the stage means to the audience.
Well, lonely stages are emblematic to the masses in need of a rhythm, basically. We don't move unless we have someone to help us move and to help us feel. And a poet is just a medium. A poet is not... They didn't come up with anything on their own. These are all ideas that are recycled, and they've been felt before, and they've been said before, and that's how we received them, because they were given to us. And so to get up on a stage is something not everyone can do. They say that more Americans fear public speaking than death. Number one is public speaking, number two is death. That's a little crazy. And so the people who do hit those stages, the people that can stand in front of thousands and thousands of people, symbolize direction. Because for those 3 minutes and 30 seconds, in slam, that's how long you've got. No one can take you off of stage. That stage is yours for that duration, and anything that comes out of your mouth is heard. And for the most part, from what I've experienced, people feel it. If you feel it, people feel it. And it's all just feeling, and it's love. It's love, even it disguised in the form of anger, disguised in the form of tears. It's the most legitimate form of human communication, because we are storytellers. And that is how we understand things. When a poet has the ability to give someone goosebumps on their skin, you have biologically altered someone through your words. They cannot unfeel that shiver that their skin has just met. It's profound, and it's unchangeable. It's unchangeable. And so poetry it's just this constant... It's why the world keeps revolving. It's the wind hitting the trees. It's the earth shaking when it needs new crust. It's forever. It's consistent. I heard a poem, I wrote a poem. They wrote a poem. The next guy wrote a poem. The next girl wrote a poem. We're going on forever and ever.
That's always my favorite thing about Poetry Church, or the alchemy of poetry. It's just so fantastic. It's just the utter healing power of it.
Truly.
It's just you didn't even pull that anywhere. It's just that you wrote that down. Now I feel it in my chest.
And people who didn't know that they had something in them, it can be pulled out by the poet.
Right.
You know, just like you said, like it takes you into private places you weren't even really like conscious existed in the form of words.
Right.
So it's
things that you don't know that are trapped in in word combinations.
It's like you're set free.
Exactly. Tell me about your philanthropy. I know earlier this year you organized a march for peace for Syria, yeah? Mm-hmm. How can we, the people who are interested in helping, be most useful?
When you are cold, what would you like usually?
A fire,
like a blanket, a jacket,
multiple hoodies.
Right. And these people don't have those things right now. And we live in an era. We are Goodwill. You know, we have our thrift stores. We give away things when we don't want them anymore. We've got stuff in our closet we don't wear anymore. We've got. I know that I have more than one pair of shoes. You know, and I recently departed from my favorite pair of shiny green boots, and I've held on to these boots for the past 7 years. And I sat there holding them, and I did not want to give them away. It was hard.
I know. I have a pair of Mary Jane shoes that my friend Johnny gave me like 10 years ago that I refuse to throw away. They're probably not wearable at this junction.
But you don't want to let go of them.
I'm not going to.
And fair enough, you know, and to have this private moment with my green boots, and then to imagine them on the feet of some girl who was a little goofy tomboy just like I was, and to imagine her walking around in them as opposed to being barefoot, like I have that in my closet.
Oh, way to go,
there.
Amal! Make me feel bad about my shoe collection. I'm like, hello, you, and I love you.
I mean, I like it. It wasn't easy though, and I was selfish, and I've even considered taking on a little, you know, and like taking my green boots back. But I'm planning a trip to Turkey. I'm going to be visiting several different refugee camps that are on the border between Syria and Turkey. And I mean, there's a drive that we're organizing, and it's going to be until like December 25th or something.
So we have time still
if anyone wants to drop stuff off. Yeah, exactly. And so we're going to take this stuff with us. And what is the most fulfilling thing to see? It's to see your work, you know, become a visual thing.
It's that ground floor impact for me. It's so...
Yeah.
So right there with those shiny boots, picturing them on somebody who is loving them
Seriously.
A fraction of how I love them. Yeah, okay, fine, take my stuff.
Like, to have that on footage, to have, like, a coat that you have had for the past 10 years, kept in your closet or whatever, and to see that being given to someone, and knowing you are never going to see that coat again, but having that footage for just a second of them receiving it, not caring who you are, not caring what relationship you had with that coat or whatever, like...
That it's keeping them warm, doing its coat job.
And they have no idea who to thank exactly. And that's what's beautiful, because you're not that important at the end of the day. Your contributions are way more than anything you could imagine. We can help, like, easy. Like, I'm collecting rice. We're collecting bottles too. We're collecting diapers. We're collecting Band-Aids, tampons, pads. You know, we're collecting socks.
Those are important.
And think about
that's like some stuff that you don't even think about. Like, you know, that's something that you might need.
Exactly. And I mean, I couldn't imagine, like, number one, sharing a tent with like 5 different families. You've got like 30 people shoved into a tent in a refugee camp. You know, the conditions are very poor. The conditions are better in the refugee camps than they are inside Syria. But regardless, like, you have women who don't have the necessary tools to stay comfortable with themselves. You know what I mean? They're like, they don't have clean underwear. They don't have clean clothes. They don't have anything to change into. They don't have privacy. You know, we have doors on every one of the bathrooms that we find anywhere. They don't have bathrooms. They have holes in the floor somewhere that you hope no one's around, and you know what I mean? Like, they're like designated areas, obviously, but they're, you know, it's like porta potties are more quality than you've got, and like, and people don't do that here, and it's just like these, and I walk the streets with these people. These people are my teachers. They are my classmates. They are the kids that sold me bread and tissues, and like, it's incredible to see how quick your life can be changed, and how quick you have to become accustomed to that porta potty sometime. You know what I mean? You have to become accustomed.
Everybody has to go.
Everyone's got to go. Amen. Whether you're a refugee or whether you're a politician, like, it's a life situation that these people have been put in, and it's not their fault that they're there. You know, it's the result of guns, and it's a result of not enough people giving a damn for it to stop. And so, yeah, but on a lighter note, we are capable of helping these people, and I work for Project More Than Metaphors. I'm co-founder along with Kyle Sutherland. We came together, we decided that as cool as poetry was, we needed something more than that. Thus, Project More Than Metaphors. And I'm going to be traveling on an international tour, hitting 30 cities, 6 different countries. People want the poetry, but we're raising money at the same time, and our goal is $100,000, which is not that much money at all, considering 30 cities. Not that much money. And what this $100,000 is going to go is to sustainable education programs inside of the refugee camps. Because ultimately, they're cold, yeah, but what's happening in their minds is more dangerous. And if we don't give these kids some way to get this trauma out there, to let us know that they feel neglected, to let us know that they are heartbroken, to let us know they saw their mom get killed, these kids are gonna bottle it up. And you want to know what the ingredients for a homegrown terrorist is? Illiteracy and the idea that the world hates you. That's homegrown terrorism right there. And like, these kids, we do not want them to grow up with hatred at all. And so we're gonna feed them, we're gonna give them jackets, but we're gonna give them pencils and notebooks, and we're gonna let them tell us the story. Because I haven't been in a refugee camp. I've never not had a refrigerator. I complain when I don't have gloves, you know. And at the end of the day, they're the stage, not me.
Where can we find more information about More Than Metaphors? You
can check us out on Facebook, is probably the best way. It's where we're most consistently updating things. But we have a website, the amalproject.com/More Than Metaphors. And Amal, my name, means hope. And that's kind of what's been sustaining this revolution. Because if you lose hope, suddenly the world is a lot darker.
There's no more revolution if there's no hope.
Exactly. And so it's kind of what they're depending on. And if we don't give them a reason to hope, and if we don't give them a jacket to hope in, you know, we're debilitating something that will change the world.
Okay, so I got oodles of jackets. Where can I bring them?
You can bring them to Damascus Grill, 1399 West Littleton Boulevard. That's my dad's restaurant, and I usually do pickups. You can also do it at the mosque that is on Parker, Masjid Abu Bakr. There's also my email, which is amalspeaks@live.com. Shoot me an email, and I will come pick it up from you. And you know, and the Mercury Cafe as well every Sunday night is accepting donations after 6 o'clock. We've had a couple schools contributing. We're even having like a Letters to the Children campaign, and we've got schools participating in that, and it's all one big collective effort, you know, getting that stuff, writing those letters, and just contacting people to learn what's going on, contacting people to be like, hey, you want to read a poem at my school, let some kids know what's going on. And so yeah, AMAL speaks at live.com. And yeah, hit us up. We're helping out, you know, we're just trying to do our best. And it's not possible without everyone. Like, even if we did like a give me $1 campaign and we got 100,000 people to participate in
right,
that. I mean, the population of Colorado is what, like 7 million? Like,
yeah.
It's not even half.
Right.
It's not even anything.
And that was me talking to Amal. Thanks so much for listening to Metro here on KGNU. Stay tuned for Democracy Now!
It's just about 3:30 here at KGNU Boulder and Denver. I want to wish everyone out there happy above freezing temperature day. First time in what seems like a long time. I guess it's been about a week and a half maybe since we broke freezing, but we did indeed today. We are currently at about 43 degrees, in the 40s. Who would believe it? Wonderful. Sunny day, some blustery winds coming from the west, and tonight it's going to drop down to just about 9 or 10 degrees. Tomorrow, also pretty much like today, maybe a little bit cooler, highs in the upper 30s, and then Thursday, highs in the upper 40s, pushing 50. Hope you're enjoying and thawing out in this warm-up period that we're having here in the Boulder-Denver area. Next up on KGNU Boulder and Denver, Democracy Now!
From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now!
We are here today to tell Madiba that his long walk is over, that he can finally rest, that he can enjoy the view of our beautiful country, of South Africa, a view he discovered when he began walking the hills of his birthplace in Bezo. His long walk is over, but ours is only beginning.
Tens of thousands of South Africans join world leaders for a memorial for the late Nelson Mandela. We'll hear from President Obama, Brazilian President Dilma Rousseff, Cuban President Raul Castro, and others. And as a Nobel Peace Prize is being given out in Oslo, we'll hear from past Nobel Peace Laureate Archbishop Desmond Tutu.
What a fantastic gift God gave to us in this Mandela, who quickly became an icon, a global icon of forgiveness, of generosity of spirit.
All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Tens of thousands are gathered inside the Soweto soccer stadium for a memorial to Nelson Mandela today as millions watch around the world. Mandela died last week at the age of 95. Nearly 100 heads of state traveled to South Africa for the memorial, including President Obama, Cuban President Raul Castro. In an unprecedented exchange, Obama shook Castro's hand as he made his way to speak at the podium. Joining Obama in the U.S. delegation are former Presidents George W. Bush, Bill Clinton, and Jimmy Carter. Jay Naidu, a close friend of Mandela's and one of his first government ministers, told the New York Times he's choosing to watch the memorial from the crowds, saying, quote, "This is a day for the people, not the powerful. What Nelson Mandela stood for most of all was solidarity with the downtrodden of the world, and for them, he's a symbol of social justice and human rights. That's why I'm saying my goodbye from the ranks of the people," he said. We'll spend the rest of the hour on the Nelson Mandela Memorial after headlines. The U.S. is providing an airlift of African troops into the Central African Republic amid sectarian violence that's left hundreds dead. French troops entered the CAR last week after fighting between Christians and Muslims claimed over 400 lives. The country's faced a spiraling crisis after the ouster of President François Bozizé by Muslim rebels in March. On Monday, fighting continued between French soldiers and rebels around the capital, Bangkok.